Good evening. My name is Jordan Colella, and I am a senior pursuing a dual degree of human nutrition and nursing from Nicholasville, Kentucky. My research mentor is Dr. Courtney Luque. 1,000 days. 1,000 days. That's a little over 2.5 years, and a lot can happen in that span of time. Someone can be 15, like Taylor Swift famously sings about. 1,000 days later, they can be 18, a fully legal adult with all those responsibilities. 1,000 days is also the amount of time it takes from conception to the second birthday of a child, and that's how we define the first 1,000 days of life. 1,000 days and a child can go from an idea all the way to walking. So 1,000 days is a really important length of time. In terms of the first 1,000 days of a child's life, this time period is influential for the growth and development for the entire life of the child, which is why nutrition is so critical for this time period. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends breastfeeding exclusively for 2 years or until the mother and child decide that breastfeeding is no longer beneficial, with introducing complementary foods around 6 months of age. However, it can be really hard for these breastfeeding mothers to find support beyond the primary care and hospital settings, and especially difficult for those working mothers and mothers with additional responsibilities. Interventions focused on policy, systems, and the environment of the mother and child are key points of focus when trying to improve breastfeeding initiation rates and sustainability. My study is a scoping review focused on these policy, system, and environment changes that have occurred from 1986 all the way to now to characterize the generalizability of these studies to the general public with the end goal of determining potential future interventions to support breastfeeding. So we started screening potential interventions. We started with 40,045 interventions from all different countries and ended with 129 in our final analysis. Of those 129, 27% of them had some form of policy, 92% of them had some form of system, and 70% of them had some form of environment change. A policy change would be like a change to the Women, Infants, and Children's Supplemental Nutrition Program, or WIC. A system change would be integrating nutrition counseling into the primary care setting. And an environment change would be like peer counseling or peer support for these breastfeeding mothers. Positively, we did find that 69% of our interventions were effective in improving breastfeeding initiation and sustainability. But the two graphs up here demonstrate where those interventions fall short. So first, we found the majority of these interventions did occur in the prenatal and the time between birth and 3 months. But after that 3 months, the interventions start to taper off pretty quickly, with us only finding 5 interventions that span throughout the entire first 1,000 days. And then the second graph demonstrates that we found a majority of these interventions occurred in either primary care settings or within the hospital. So with this data, we can make some conclusions. First, 69% effectiveness is really good, but we need to strive for 100% effectiveness with these interventions. Second, most of these interventions, like I said, occurred during the prenatal period and the time between birth and 3 months, which is a problem considering the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations for breastfeeding for 2 years. And then finally, with that second graph, having most of these interventions occur in either primary care settings or within the hospital demonstrates a very obvious disconnect between the clinical setting and the real world. So what do we do? Where do we go from here? Our first step is to create and design interventions that span throughout the entire first 1,000 days, so the mother and child have constant support throughout this time period. Another direction we can go is to find, create, and design interventions that connect the primary care, the hospital, and the clinical setting to the real world, so these mothers and children have constant support throughout that first 1,000 days. And finally, we can also start to look at designing interventions that help working mothers and mothers with other responsibilities feel as though breastfeeding is a priority not only for them, but to everyone around them. So, all in all, creating a culture that can improve breastfeeding rates, initiation, and sustainability can further benefit growth of the whole child and further benefit future generations. Thank you.